Hello students, in the last video we learned about mutation, and in this video we'll be doing pedigree analysis. So pedigree analysis means the analysis of traits in several generations of a family. Okay, these traits could be useful traits, or sometimes they could even indicate a condition or a disease. Okay, so to do pedigree analysis, we take the help of a pedigree chart. So the pedigree chart contains the following symbols. Okay, so we have a square box which represents a male and a circle which represents a female. And this rhombus is sex unspecified, it can be any sex. So when it is darkened or colored like this, it usually means these are the affected individuals. They have their particular disease or the defective trait, right? And this line between the opposite gender means mating, and these double line means the mating is between the relatives itself. And when you see a branching of this line, it means they've given birth to offsprings. And yes, and if the offspring is colored, that means colored or darkened, that means it is affected. And you can see sometimes when a number is written inside like that, it means there are 5 unaffected. Suppose it's 5, then it's 5 unaffected offspring. So usually there are 4 types of charts representing 4 different kind of conditions that we are supposed to know. So we have autosomal dominant, autosomal recessive, X-linked recessive, and X-linked dominant. So out of these 4, the first 3 are very important. So in this first one, autosomal dominant, that means the defective gene which is causing the particular condition or disease is associated with a autosomal chromosome, okay, an autosome. So you have in our case we have 23 pair of autosomes. So the particular defective gene is present in the autosomes, in those 23 pairs of chromosomes. And when I say X-linked, that means it is present in the X chromosome. Okay, now what about dominant and recessive? So we already learned that a gene which is dominant expresses itself over a recessive gene. So we have 2 variations in autosomal, dominant and recessive, same with X-linked, that is dominant and recessive. So uh, for these 3 types, we have examples here. So this first one is autosomal recessive. So how can we say this is autosomal recessive? So first thing you see that the parents here are unaffected, okay, but the children's here are affected. That means the only possible explanation for this is that they have a heterozygous condition, but the defective gene is recessive. So probably they have something like this. Let us say the defective gene is A. Okay, the trait, the allele is A. So we have heterozygous condition over here, right? So since this gene is recessive, it won't express itself in the parents. Let us say it was small a and small a. We know that the recessive condition only expresses itself when both the alleles are recessive. So in the other cases, it is going to be heterozygous, or it can be, if you do the Punnett square for this, you can see what are the combinations. We have AA, we have small a, this, right? So it can be either heterozygous or dominant, either heterozygous or homozygous, okay? I mean for this, sorry. And same here. So now we found out the genotype of this particular offspring. So it has to be homozygous recessive. Okay, there's no other explanation. And here you can see that the parents do not have any condition. Again, the offspring is showing the disease. So this again proves our previous thought. Now let's see the next one. So this is an example of autosomal dominant. Okay, so how do we know that this is autosomal dominant? Let us see. So first you can see there's an affected parent here, and this affected parent is giving rise to children that are affected. So all of the progeny, all of the offsprings are affected. You can see here, right? All of them have the disease. Now their offsprings, when again married to a normal person, they have again an affected here. Okay, so for this you can see that obviously this is unaffected. So the genotype for this should be AA, because even if there is one dominant allele, the person would be affected, but in this case, it has to be recessive. So this is small a, and this can either be this or heterozygous in condition. Okay, so to know that, let's make a chart. If it were homozygous dominant, then you can see all of them would give rise to heterozygous dominant, and all the progeny would be affected with the disease. In case it was heterozygous, you can see that in one case 50% of the offspring would have been normal and the other 50% would have been deceased. Okay, but in this case you see 100% of the progeny is affected. Okay, so that means we can cancel out this and we can say that it was homozygous dominant and this was homozygous recessive. So that is why all the offsprings are affected. Now, when these all offsprings have heterozygous condition, so whichever normal person they marry, the offsprings, half of them will be affected, the other half will not be affected. Okay, so this is how we can deduce autosomal dominant disorder. Okay, so next one we have here, this is X-linked recessive. Okay, so there is a trick to find out if it is X-linked. So usually when it is an X-linked disorder, the disease transfers from the female mother to the male child, okay, from mother to son. Why this happens? Because we know that the disease is present in X. So let us say uh, either one of the chromosome is defective. Okay, so uh, when a male progeny is born, so we usually have X and Y. Okay, so this Y chromosome which is there, it always comes from the father. Okay, it always comes from the father, whereas the X always comes from the mother. Okay, so when the mother is affected with a defective gene, so there is always a chance of this defective gene moving into the sons. Okay, so that is why in X-linked, we usually see the disease or the trait being transferred from the mother to the son. So let us see in this case. In this case, you can see that the affected mother is transferring her trait to her male progenies, all her male progenies. So we can say that this is X-linked. And how can we say it's recessive? So if it has to be recessive, then both of the genes should be affected. Both of the X genes should be affected, okay? And then only it will express itself. Let us say if it were dominant, so, and this was homozygous dominance, let us just assume. So in that case, this homozygous dominant would also go to the female progeny, and in this case, the female progeny should also be affected. But in this case, the female progeny is not being affected, so we can say that this is X-linked recessive. So these were the three important categories of pedigree chart.